I am Abir Shakwir, the Assistant Resident Representative of UNDP Egypt, and I would like to welcome you all to our session titled Advancing DPI for an Inclusive, Sustainable, Resilient and Innovative Future in Africa and the Arab region. Digital transformation and digital public infrastructure in particular offer unprecedented opportunities for solving global challenges and accelerating the achievements of SDGs. Last year was pivotal for DPI as it witnessed important milestones, including the consensus on a definition of DPI among countries with the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration. Also, DPI was announced as one of 12 innovative UN initiatives to achieve the Agenda 2030 at the 78th session of the UN General Assembly. This year, the World Economic Forum predicted that the key trends for DPI will be on developing national DPI strategies and measuring the impact of DPI. Just a week ago, the UN released the Universal DPI Safeguards Framework to promote safe and inclusive digital public infrastructure. As you all know, DPI involves transitioning from a fragmented approach to digital innovation to assure the digital systems that are secure and interoperable, and DPI successful implementation requires sustainable financing models and appropriate legal and institutional frameworks. This can only be achieved through collaboration between the different stakeholders in the DPI ecosystem. I am very excited today to moderate this session to hear from our esteemed panelists who are representing the different stakeholders in DPI ecosystem, including the government, international development organizations, nonprofit organizations, and the private sector on their views and experiences on DPI implementation. I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed panelists, Engineer Mahmoud Badawi, Advisor to the Minister of Communications and Information Technology for Digital Transformation in Egypt, Mr. Alessandro Fracassetti, UNDP Resident Representative in Egypt, Ms. Laila Sarhain, Senior Vice President and Group Country Manager for the North Africa, Levant and Pakistan region, Visa, Mr. Walid Hamdi, Head of Information Society Division, Infrastructure and Energy Department, African Union Commission, and Mr. Militil Khonestich, Senior Director for Digital Inclusion, GSMA. Let me start with Engineer Mahmoud, and please, if you can tell us about the digital transformation journey in Egypt.
Thank you so much, and it's a great pleasure to be part of the DPI Summit for its presence in Cairo, and looking forward for successful outcomes and call to actions from that one. And with a very short brief, it's the digital transformation journey in Egypt started a long time ago. But I would just go back to 2017 from that point. In 2017, we looked at the first adoption of e-government in its form, where some parts of the world it was called Government 2.0, and some other parts it was Government 1.0. But it was all focused around the idea of replacing the physical presence of services delivery of the government to the citizen and its constituents and all the beneficiaries, whether it's an economical unit or others, through a set of electronic services available through what we used to call portals, what we used to call e-government portals, and that relied mainly on mimicking the setup of how the government looks like in its structure. That was in 2017. Along the way, we started realizing the benefit of, if we want to move to the government 2.0, move to the next level, this is where we want the services to be delivered in a more personalized manner to the beneficiary of the service. And that point, it came with an essence that we need to have a proper data exchange and a proper data governance that came to the point that we need to have what we call the citizen multidimensional models, including the Citizens 360, including the Business Units 360, the locations. And we started the effort at that point that came to a realization of what we call the data infrastructure for that. And by infrastructure, I don't mean data centers, but I mean it's a data foundation for any services to be delivered, to be properly personalized towards the beneficiary of the service, in addition to having enough governance and allowing the decision makers to have a data-driven policy making. That was the second step, and we started realizing on that from the 2018 till today. Further to that, we established what we call the digital transformation strategy and journey and plan that we had, and that focused more on pushing the digital frontier more towards the personalization, in addition to delivering more of a high-impact services that would allow proper governance to the government services and the management of the funds, in addition to further expanding on the capability of having a proper data-driven policy making. And that pushed towards a lot of the programs that looked at. One of them was announced, what we called AHMOS. And this program was mainly focused around the transformation of a government hierarchical delivery into more of a platform, government as a platform. And at this point, we started looking at different, what we call the common components, or what we called enablers after that, or what we call evoluted after that when the idea came into a DPI. When we looked at that, we started realizing that the digital realm is equivalent to the physical realm. So we need to understand that there is a set of tools that allows any beneficiary to use a service. In the physical realm, it's identity, it's paper, it's pen, it's different items that are used. So when we look at the digital realm, if we want it to be equivalently to the physical and move further into that, we need to have such basic foundational tools as part of that. And this is completely mapped to what we see at the DPI, in even further to moving to that into further common components expanded by the GovStack. Further to this point, we started elaborating further and further into adopting the different DPI components, from digital identity, from digital communication in the form of a digital mailbox. We're looking into the digital vault. We're looking into digital payments, of course. But not only that, we're also looking at the proper information mediation that governs the data exchange and properly adopts the proper data governance along with the data privacy capabilities in that. And at the end, our plan and our way forward is what we call a restless innovation and a restless add-on. Why is that? Is that when we look at the digital transformation today, we look at it, we see a generation today that are consuming services in a much different manner than the generation after that, and then the generation after that. I was talking to one of my colleagues and the team members and the different forums that the digital frontier today that we are using in most of the world, it concerns digital services, mobile channels, and apps. Some of the generations today, they only respond to gamifications. Other generations, they respond only to simpler way of communication, like voice. So that's why we always, in addition to expanding on our DPI, we look at how the different generations respond to the digital services and how they consume it, and what's the best way to be always relevant. And that's the most important part. If you want to keep your digital realm up and running, you need to be always relevant to the current generation in place. That's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud, and for taking us through the digital transformation journey at a country level. And now I would like to hear from Alessandro Fracassetti about the role of International Development Organization on advancing DPI at the global level.
Thank you very much. So after Mr. Badawi, it's very interesting to follow up, and I also need to do a bit of looking back before we can discuss things. So first of all, UNDP really started getting into the areas of digital strategy and digital transformation in the a decade ago. Its first digital strategy was in 2019, and the idea was to leverage digital transformation into the organization. I have to say, for those of you not familiar with UNDP, we are not like some of the other colleagues here, we are not a specialized organization only on digital transformation. We are the development organization of the United Nations. We deal generally on areas such as social, economic, environmental policy and programs. But as I said, since a number of years, we started leveraging these programs and making sure that digital transformation is an important part of it. And it was really also the result of the demand that we have heard from partners and from countries where we are. UNDP is present in around 150 countries around the world, and generally we're a very, very close partner to the governments there. This initiative is built upon this extensive history of providing project-level digital support to its partners, and really marking a strategic shift towards a corporate-driven transformation. The strategy aimed at to reimagine how UNDP serves its partners and manages its systems and processes. And that foresight at the time proved particularly important as the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated global digital transformation. Since that time, UNDP has significantly enhanced its digital capabilities, developing new tools and expertise in digital programming. And in response to increasing demand from governments, we have continued to accelerate these efforts and ensuring that the future digital transformation initiatives also protect human rights and, as we say, leave no one behind. Currently, the strategy really looks at three main objectives. First one is to use digital tools to amplify UNDP's current programs and its impact. The secondly is to strengthen inclusive digital ecosystem worldwide. And third, to transform UNDP into a digitally native organization equipped with the skills, processes, and data necessary to remain the development partner of choice in the digital age. Again, when we talk about this, we're talking about international organizations and UN agencies. In this, we obviously need to partner with many other players, of course, the private sectors, governments, and others. Over the past 2 years, we have supported more than 60 countries in the comprehensive national level digital transformation efforts, and we have helped over 20 countries, including a number of those in the region, to implement digital public infrastructure and digital public goods. And our work in these countries addresses global challenges such as information pollution, social protection, access to justice, climate resilience, and others. This has been achieved through initiatives like piloting digital legal IDs, advising on DPI strategies, replicating open source police records management systems, and scaling court case management systems. Now, we've also played an important role in global DPI advocacy, serving as the official knowledge partner during the G20 Indian presidency under the Digital Economy Working Group. And in addition, UNDP has co-launched the 15-5 campaign with partners aiming to support 50 countries in the design, launch, and scaling of their DPI components by 2028. In collaboration with the UN Secretary General's Tech Envoy Office, we also launched the DPI Safeguard Initiative, which ensures safe and inclusive DPI implementation across nations. And similarly, our Digital for Sustainable initiatives aims to foster collaboration between digital industry players, governments, and other stakeholders to drive sustainable, inclusive, and resilient digital transformation. Just last week, UNDP and the Ministry of ICT of Egypt participated together in the Summit of the Future and in the UN General Assembly in New York. We were privileged, along with ITU, to host Minister Amtelat, who is the host of this event, and we've actively engaged in global discussions on digital transformation, particularly around DPI and artificial intelligence. Egypt, represented by MCIT, also hosted a successful event on enabling a digital Arab states region to advance the SDGs agenda during the UN General Assembly. So I will leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. And UNDP is always advocating for inclusive digital transformation. Of course, one of the concerns of digital transformation and DPI is the worry that if DPI are not properly done, we may end up excluding those incapable of accessing digital solutions. And digital divide will remain a source of inequality, which could be intensified with the acceleration of digitalization efforts across the globe. So I would like to ask Millie and hear from you about your views on how you see the digital divide evolving with the DPI, and what are the key challenges that people face to participate in digital ecosystems?
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are less familiar with the GSMA, we represent all the mobile operators worldwide. And we care a lot about the digital divide and how that is evolving, especially in this region here in Sub-Saharan Africa and the MENA region. The good news is that the region is more connected than ever before, and the mobile industry will invest about 170 billion in infrastructure and innovation up to 2030. The challenge, however, is that DPI does not exist in a vacuum, and it really exists in that connectivity context. And there are some real challenges that we face. So for example, there's about 1.2 billion people in this region that are still not using mobile internet. And why is mobile internet so relevant? It's relevant because it accounts for 83% of all connections worldwide, and that's even higher in low and middle income countries where a lot of individuals exclusively use mobile as their way to go online. So it's not about laptops, it's not about iPads, it's about having a smartphone or a mobile phone to access all the services that the digital economy and society provides. So I think we can be very excited about digital public infrastructure as maybe a catalyst for some of the challenges that exist out there to get people online. But we also should be realistic. When we did our research about the motivations for why people and when people adopt mobile internet, it's not really e-government services. It's other type of services that really draw people online. And we do an assessment of what are the barriers that people face, and we really need to focus on those type of barriers that not only prevent people from adopting mobile internet, but also from using it regularly and every day. Because our data shows that even if those people who have started using mobile internet and they're becoming a little bit more aware, if you continue in that user journey, if we look at the people who are using the mobile internet every day for at least 3 different type of uses, and for us that's very common, but for a lot of people it's not. In Uganda, those numbers drop by half. So the adoption rate is 40% for men and 20% for women, and then it drops to 20% and 10% for regular and diverse use. And why is that the case? There's a number of barriers. So it's not infrastructure. That's always a very easy answer, is to let's invest more in infrastructure, but that will not close the digital divide. It's really taken a human-centric approach, and that's also a lesson to take in terms of digital public infrastructure. We really need to focus on the user, for them. So we need to focus on making handsets and smartphones more affordable, providing access to financing and reducing their cost. That is by far the top most reported barrier that people identify to start using the internet. The second one is a lack of literacy in digital skills. So we need to invest in digital skills and training programs. That is true for every commercial service, but that's definitely true for digital public infrastructure. We cannot roll out these services and technologies without also thinking about how are we making people aware of how they can start using it. And then very important, that links very much to the safeguards initiative that you mentioned before. It's about the safety and security concerns that people face and the social norms that exist as well. Because let's not forget, there's a very significant digital gender divide. So if we don't take a gendered approach to digital public infrastructure, we'll end up with an unequal benefit to society. So it's very important that we address both the barriers, focus on the humans, and have a human-centric approach and address that digital gender divide. And I'm happy to say a bit more about what the industry specifically thinks about DPI, but I'll come to that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Millie. And actually, I would like to hear about the opportunities that DPI can bring to innovation or innovators and entrepreneurs. And I am addressing my question now to Walid. And Africa, as we all know, is the world's youngest and fastest growing continent. And it is estimated by the Bold Investment for DPI report by UNDP and DPG Alliance that DPI can help accelerate economic growth by 20 to 33% in low and middle income countries. What role does DPI play in fostering innovation and entrepreneurship across the African continent? And how can this drive inclusive economic growth as outlined in the Agenda 2063 vision?
Thank you so much. Definitely, DPI plays a vital role in innovation. So, African continent is a very young continent, and actually, yes, we have challenges, but the way that I like to visualize it is that we have challenges, but across the road we have opportunities. So we need only to bridge and cross to the opportunities and have this mindset of finding the true opportunities in our challenges. And this is actually where it's a very important role DPI plays, because this is laying the foundation for the foundation that will actually lower the cost and also be reused in different solutions. So startup and entrepreneurs who are interested in tackling real-life challenges in Africa can find these foundations to build their solutions. And we have even seen in Africa before that some of the African countries' government, they have included startups in their journey towards digitalizing their services. So it's very important for innovation ecosystem, for everyone in the ecosystem to know their exact role and exact responsibilities, meaning that government, private sector, academia, financial institutions, and innovators, everyone should know exactly their role, and this will help kind of like focus on the problems, focus on the services that we would like to design and to digitalize, rather than building from scratch. So DPI is playing a crucial role. For the Agenda 2063, it's a very bold and a very kind of like visionary a strategy for Africa to be prosperous and to be also peaceful, and Africa we want. And in the agenda, we find a lot of focusing on inclusion and also economical growth and digital economy. So that's actually the main focus point when we talk about the DPI as a foundation to accommodate all the services that we kind of looking forward to include everyone. But it's also, on the other hand, it's a driver. It's a very important driver for the prerequisite, because in Africa we have a lot of connectivity issues. So I think it will be also a very good driver for this connectivity issue and gaps to be bridged fast in order with that we can leverage the DPI benefits when it comes to innovation and when it comes to providing these new solutions for the continent and for all the 55 member states. Also, there is another very important area when we look at the Agenda 2063. We look at also things like the Africa Free Trade. We look at the Africa Digital Transformation Agenda. All those are kind of collaborative, kind of like direction, documentation. So this collaboration, it's also kind of like very inclusive, where everyone is welcomed and everyone is urged to search, to contribute and in this transferable journey. So DPI is, I think, very important when it comes to innovation, when it comes to really new solutions to the challenges that we have in Africa through the use of technology. And it's a very vital role, and I think we are beyond explaining how DPI is going to help us, rather than we want to accelerate having DPIs and DPGs in place so that we can really frog leap and have all this kind of like transformation in place to achieve global goals as well as African goals.
Thank you, Walid. And since you mentioned collaboration, I would like now to ask Laila, as a representative of the private sector, which is a key player in DPI, how do you see the opportunities for public-private partnership in driving digitalization in Africa, and what is the vision of Visa in this regard?
Yeah, thank you. So I think a lot has already been said around many topics, but if you think of DPI in particular and public-private partnerships, I see the opportunities in terms of bridging some of the challenges that you face in such solutions. Challenges of the infrastructure gap that exists, and we talked about the digital inclusion, we talk about financial inclusion, the challenges as well in terms of the skills and the digital skills that you need to build, specifically when you come to the excluded population, and the challenges in terms of the regulatory frameworks that need to be put in place. And I think when you come in a public-private partnership, there's a shared responsibility for each stakeholders to do their part. If I think of governments, there's definitely a big work that they do in setting the regulatory framework and expanding the digital infrastructure, but also ensuring that we're not working in silos. It has been, a lot of experiences have shown that when you work in silos, things don't happen, things don't get used. You can provide the solutions to your citizen, but that service or that solution is not going to be used because it has been worked in silos. Specifically, if I think of the word of digital and payments, both words need to be working across borders, right? And setting the right regulations and the right frameworks, not only locally, but regionally, and also globally is very important. I think the private sector comes with the technology, the innovation. We talked about trust and security. Obviously, the cybersecurity aspect when you start going into a digital world. All of this expertise is something that the private sector brings on the table. And the most important stakeholder is obviously the citizen that is receiving that public service, right? And in terms of making sure that they are skilled and prepared to use that digital service, but also a good feedback loop in terms of how do we improve and continuously improve in delivering a seamless and secure digital service to the citizens.
Thank you, Laila, and thank you for mentioning the citizen as the main stakeholder. That's very true. And now I will go for a second round of questions, but I will ask you please to be very brief because we have like 10 minutes to conclude the session. So I will again ask Mahmoud about the DPI implementation in Egypt, and the government of Egypt already has impactful work, especially in the health and justice sectors. So if you can give us an overview of DPI implementation in Egypt, highlighting the main challenges and the impact so far.
The DPI implementation that's moving in Egypt, it's an ever-growing implementation, and it starts with few parts. The first one is for the inclusion. We need to make sure that we have enough foundations from an infrastructure standpoint to allow all of the citizens to be part of the digital realm, in addition to their wherever they are placed, whether they are in the country or outside of the country. That's one first part. The second part, when we look at those foundations, We look at different parts, whether it comes to connectivity, it comes to cloud, it comes to enough legislations and enough data security that allows them to be able to exchange such data. That's the foundation layer, and we have been investing in that for a long time, and we will continue investing with the growth of the population, of course. And this, one of our programs is what we call Decent Life program, which is mainly invested into reaching out to the fiber connectivity and the digital infrastructure that goes all the way to across the different parts of the country. That's the first one. The second one, the second layer, which is a set of enablement tools, which is focused mainly around the DPI in its core essence, but we took it into a further detailed set of components. The first one is the digital identity that's properly interoperable and sovereign and secure. That's in its manner. And then we started that implementation, and we reached a good percentage of coverage out of the full population as we speak. And that is accompanied with a motivating services through the Digital Egypt platform that allows the users to register for the digital identity and consume services from the government. That's that's one of the implementation that's already undergoing and undergoing further expansions to reach extensive number of services that allows all the populations to be part of the digital realm through the digital identity process and a unified identity. The second one is, the second item that we're looking at is a data exchange, which is happening through our, what we called a G2G platform, a government-to-government integration platform that was allowing the data exchange and the services exchange between the different government entities, while we are revamping that to move into the concept of information mediation that has an event-based capability for capturing an event that happens into the citizen life, and it can drive all the digital services towards a personalized services into that event. The fourth element of the story, the third element that we're looking at is also the digital payment, where we added as part of the information mediation because payment is part of any service. So payment is already adopted, and we have multiple fintechs and multiple financial institutions participating currently in the e-payment part and the digital payments. Further to that, we're adding additional components like the digital mailbox so that we have a unified method of communication, and we are in the piloting phase for that. We are in the assessment phase for the digital vault. We are also in the assessment phase for digital content delivery, where we are piloting some of those implementation. In addition to that, we have established already the digital signature and the digital stamping capability through the trust services. And this framework is already in place, and we see that its expansion will go alongside with the services expansion. That's the way we are looking at it now, but we believe those components will be highly adopted throughout high-impact services that are focused on specific domains within the government and within the citizen life. One of them is the social protection domain. So the more we go into digitalizing the management process of social protection programs, the more we will get more people onboarded into the DPI in an inclusive manner. So the first one is where we talk about the disabilities, when we talk about the single mother, when we talk about the different personas that we start delivering the social protection programs for. Further to that is supporting our labor market and workforce into finding the right opportunity of jobs and asking and looking for helping the employers in finding the right skills. So that's also another platform that we're looking at that will deliver high impact services that would accelerate the DPI adoption. Last but not least, and this is not the end of the bracket's still open, is the last platform that we're looking at, which is the economical units supporting programs that would allow the investors to live through the digital realm from the inception phase to the insolvency phase. And that would mean in its essence that investor can deal with all of his government services digitally, and if there is a need for a physical presence, the government will be attending to them, not the other way around. And that's the vision of that. And that can only happen through the adoption of the different DPI tools that I mentioned as a set of enablers, along with the different partnerships with the private sector to implement those systems in the way that can allow its consumption in the best manner, and in a sustainable manner, and its continuous evolution.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. I think there is a lot of work that's going on. I think the road is still long, but you are on it. And now I want to go back to Alessandro, and UNDP and MCIT have been working together for the last 20 years very closely. And if you can reflect on this, the impact of this relationship, this cooperation, and how do you see it develop in the future?
Indeed, a long partnership, 20 years, a friendship, I would say. And maybe I'll just use some numbers to, the impact, obviously, it's something that when we measure development impact, you need to have a number of years. And some of these numbers, I think, can give us a little bit of a taste of some of this partnership. So our program and our partnership is built on capacity building. Every year with the ministry, we build the capacity of at least 1,000 ICT youth professionals, enhancing digital skills of women in remote and marginalized areas, which addressed your point that we discussed earlier of the digital divide. We have supported the provision and access to digital services with over 170 services now available online. We have supported the modernization and upgrading of over 2,800 Egypt post offices, and enhanced the capacity of more than 36,000 employees through comprehensive training in areas such as financial inclusion, governance, digital transformation, and anti-money laundering. And also through our successful cooperation with the Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship Centers, we have established 2 innovation clusters with world-class partners, Plug and Play and 500 Global. We've trained or supported training of more than 140,000 entrepreneurs, supported more than 600 enterprises, which led to the creation of 31,000 jobs, and facilitated the freelancing of more than 9,000 young men and women. One of the significant joint projects we work with the ministry on is the Applied Innovation Center, which aims to enhance its technical and institutional capacities to develop AI solutions for national challenges and position the center among the top national applied R&D entities in emerging ICT technologies. During the pandemic, we've helped develop the first AI-powered platform in Africa and the Middle East to assist Egyptians with hearing disabilities in accessing reliable information and connect the Ministry of Health in Egyptian Sign Language. We've also utilized digital health platforms to provide up to 1 million health consultations free of charge across Egypt. Clearly, a lot of this has been done by the ministry, by the government, and our role has been really much a role of a partner, of a support. But we take pride in this joint, result. Of course, we recognize the importance of an inclusive whole society approach to digital transformation, and we believe that progress in digital transformation, particularly in DPI, involves the whole ecosystem, not only isolated initiatives. So, as we witness now the rapid advancement of technological changes and the immense effort that the Ministry of Communication and ICT and Information Technology at the Government of Egypt is undergoing to accelerate the national digital transformation agenda, I'm really confident that our partnership will continue to grow swiftly, and we can work together towards further positioning Egypt as a key player and contributor to global efforts in the advancement of digital technologies.
Thank you, Alessandro. And since we are talking about Egypt, I would like to ask Laila if you can share with us what are the opportunities and challenges digital transformation may pose in Egypt?
Sure. I think if we look at Visa, we definitely support many of the governments and businesses, and specifically as well in Egypt, in building digital payment system, right? And I want to go back to what Engineer Mahmoud said at the beginning in terms of bringing a digital ID to people is probably the first step towards bringing people into a digital public infrastructure and a digital payment system. I think in the region, at least I know we know that in the Central Europe, Middle East and Africa region, there are more than 400 million adults that do not have an ID today. And those are excluded. Even if they have a phone, they're excluded. They do not have an ID, they cannot access public services, they do not access a bank account. So we really look at things holistically and help many of the governments across the region in building those digital ID by bringing the right partners from a technology perspective and enrolling, doing the biometric check, government store the citizen data, and then we come at the end, and Engineer Mahmoud also mentioned digital payments. We come at the end and we link this ID to a token or to a payment credential that is going to help that citizen actually go on with his life, do the public services that he requires, take the train, take the bus, etc., etc. So digital ID is at the heart of a lot of the things that we do when we work with government, specifically around digital public infrastructure. And another point that is also very important is finding the right, I would say, the right use case that is going to make that citizen stick to that digital service. And when we talk about social protection, for example, this is something that people need. We talk about subsidies. This is a need that they have. Digitizing all of this process is something that is a huge opportunity for everyone. One, it brings transparency into the process, and then it goes to the people that really need it. We've worked actually with the ministry, with MCIT, on a pilot in Port Said, where we distributed 500,000 cards to people to receive their subsidies on their cards. I think this is the first step. We're looking at health services. We're looking at many other services that we can bring, link that digital ID to that digital experience, and eventually the digital payment.
Thank you, Laila. And I think Egypt is not the only country that's trying to implement and advance DPI. There are a lot of examples from other countries from Africa and the Arab region. And I think this summit will be one of the venues that allow us to learn more about the examples from other countries. Here I would like to ask Walid, in what way can collaborative frameworks among African nations in developing DPI lead to more integrated digital economy, and how does this alignment support the collective aspiration of Agenda 2063?
Right. I think Agenda 2063 is focusing on the economic growth in general, and also more integrated Africa. So under the agenda, we have our digital transformation strategy 2030, which is also talks to kind of like what our member states need as a prerequisite for their transformation journey. And one of the things that is in this strategy is the infrastructure. And we have touched on regional data centers, and we are not starting from scratch. We already kind of like urge our regional economical communities to work together, and we support them at the continental level. So it's very important to have this collaborative and shared kind of like DPIs, because at the African Union also we work with our member states to provide things like the digital ID interoperability framework, the African Union data policy framework, our African AI strategy, which was endorsed and adopted in June this year. So all these strategies, plus our African Digital Compact, which was the African Common submission to the Global Digital Compact. All these documents, all these strategies, all these policies, all these frameworks are kind of like encourage this collaborative development across our 55 member states. So it's very important because the natural kind of like scaling when we talk about Africa free trade, when we talk about Africa free movement of people and goods, all these aspirations in the agenda requires an infrastructure, a joint kind of collaborative shared infrastructure within the African regions, and also a kind of like you need to move from country A to B using all your same credentials, and then that's to be hosted somewhere also for the data exchange among countries. So it's very important, and I think it speaks directly to the agenda inspiration for the Africa we want.
Thank you, Walid. And actually, I would like to end this discussion with some inspiring stories about implementation on the ground. And I would like to ask Mili if you can give us some examples of the successful approaches by the mobile industry to get people included in the digital ecosystems.
Yes, definitely. So I'll be very transparent in terms of DPI. That's quite a new topic for the mobile industry, and there's a lot of questions that we try to address and answer, so it's great to be here at this forum as well to exchange learning and to definitely learn from everybody here. But on the individual components of digital public infrastructure, the mobile industry has done a lot already. For example, through mobile money, the mobile industry has onboarded millions and billions of people into the formal financial system. It has created commercially based interoperability agreements so that payments can be made between different mobile money providers, but also between mobile operators and banks. Through our mobile money certification program, we ensured safety and security levels of those mobile money services. We previously had a digital for identity program where the mobile operators really thought about the personal information that they have, how can that contribute to creating digital identities for people because of the vast agent networks that mobile operators have that engage on a daily basis with customers. We've set data privacy principles, ethical AI principles to have certain standards in countries where there's not yet the appropriate policy or regulation in place. So I think the industry has done a lot, also in terms actually of digital inclusion. So through our mobile internet skills training program, we reached 70 million people. So we do that with mobile operators because they see the commercial incentive to train customers so that they use these services. So as a GSMA, we support all these initiatives, and there's a lot of examples. But there are some fundamental questions, I think, to be had. One of them, I mean, there's many, but one of them would be to what extent would mobile operators end up competing with government-led services? So that's a fundamental question to be addressed. I think when it comes to mobile money, it's all about, we're not competing as much with each other as we are competing with cash. So if you look at all the transaction value in the mobile money system, about 40% is cash transactions. Only 5% is transactions that stay within the digital ecosystem with merchants, and about 8% is transactions from a mobile money provider to a bank. So the pie is there to grow, and we're really hopeful that DPI and these initiatives can help us grow that pie and move away from cash-based systems into more formalized economies. I think one key aspect is that the policy and regulation that was mentioned here before, it's key that the policy and regulatory environment and tax systems, that they incentivize investment and that they don't add a burden to the industry or to the digital ecosystem. Similarly, towards the potential for fragmentation of different data privacy regulations, so we need to take that global or even regional perspective so that we make sure that the kind of global companies are able to innovate and scale their solutions. So a lot has been done and a lot more can be done. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Millie. And I actually, at the end of the session, I would like to thank all the esteemed panelists for their invaluable contributions, and also which also reflected the importance of collaboration among the different stakeholders at the DPI ecosystem to actually use this tool or the DPI to advance UN Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.